Welcome to Idle Red Hands Weekly. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Chris.
And this week on the Weekly, Hellboy RPG by Mantic. Alexa, play Starfinder. The 2020 Ennie Award winners announced. 2D20 Star Trek Humble Bundle. And a TTRPG Masters of the Universe.
I at least know of a couple of those.
Good.
I also wonder if you've triggered anyone's Alexa to actually play Starfinder.
I wonder. Yeah, and we talked about that a long time ago when the sample came out. So now we have like actual numbers and details and actually credits to the voice actors that they're working with on that. So I guess we can start there.
Yeah, sure. What's the point of putting out that little blurb if I just usurp it? I don't know.
So Amazon and Paizo have finally launched their Starfinder audio game. So if you have Alexa on Amazon or Android or iOS, any Alexa version, you can say, Alexa, open the Starfinder game, and then you'll access the interactive Starfinder that they've released. And what they're saying is you don't need any experience playing sci-fi RPGs. Right. The first 3 episodes are announced. The voice acting credits are Nathan Fillion from Firefly, Laura Bailey from Last of Us, and Critical Role. The 2 big names, and then there are 13 other voice actors in the game cast by Audible Studios.
Cool.
Owned by Amazon.
Of course. Yeah.
So Laura Bailey said, I'm excited about this new take on entertainment. Voice command has become such a normal thing for us now as far as task-oriented things, and it's exciting to be able to use this entertainment now. I think this game will be one of many. So Paizo released a free pilot play episode last year, which we talked about. Yep. And then they have upgraded that since. Other RPG publishers are looking to follow suit with this. So Riverhorse has Void Warper, and D&D's Endless Quest Choose Your Own Adventure stories are also available on Audible. So I'm not quite sure how they work. Maybe they have chapters. Maybe you skip to chapters or something.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I'm not sure. Like, I don't have an Alexa. Don't have an Alexa. Won't get one because I don't want people listening in on me. Despite all the other stuff I put online, but whatever. Right. So I will not be able to experience this, but I wonder if this is just kind of like a narrated Choose Your Own Adventure book. Because like we talked about last time, I remember those from the 80s and 90s. So, hey, that's how old I am. And yeah, this might just be voice actors kind of reading the parts, and then you get a choice of kind of where you jump to.
What you're going to do.
Yeah. Or I don't know, maybe it's more complex. Like maybe you actually have like stats and kind of roll, because those books did exist at one time too, kind of roll a die, and if you got this, then go here and not go there.
Yeah, the Fighting Fantasy books had character sheets. Yeah, I remember you had to keep track of hit points and things. So you got to determine when you died.
Well, yeah, I guess in a way, yeah.
Or you at least kept track of it. So Starfinder will be available in the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia.
Yeah, of course, not here. Yeah.
And Amazon's pretty good at blocking people out. Region protecting. And the prices that they released, so that pilot episode is free, so I think that's still accessible. Each episode is $1.99 after that, and a full season can be bought for $9.99. So $10 gets you however many episodes are in a season.
Hopefully more than 10.
Yeah, right. We will see if people pay attention to that. And it seems like there should be, at least it could help explaining mechanics and concepts in the game, like giving you options like, do you want to go, do you want to stealth, or do you want to, things that may not be apparent in kind of someone that hasn't played an RPG before, kind of introduce them to options that you would have in a game that might correspond to actual Starfinder mechanics. But I'm not sure if there's actually going to be dice, rolling behind the scenes kind of things like PC RPGs.
Hey, who knows? I would almost not want that. I mean, because that kind of sounds a little bit like a video game, where essentially all the dice rolls and mechanic stuff happen kind of in the black box of the code or the computer, which sometimes can be fun because, then you kind of don't worry about it and you just, kind of play your character. But if it's meant, and I'm not saying it is, if it's meant to be kind of an introduction to tabletop role-playing games, at least when I listen to actual plays, I kind of want that stuff out front so that I learn to play the game. Not everybody wants that. Right. I don't know if that's what they're going for with this Starfinder Alexa thing, but if they are trying to teach people to play the game, I would want that to be kind of explained, though it might break the narrative.
Right.
If they just kind of want people to buy the Starfinder IP or maybe get interested in it and then go join the game later, I could see keeping mechanics unspoken since it's voice only.
Yeah, and I think that would get people excited about the lore and the characters, the kind of
word. Sorry, I hate that word so bad.
But the Starfinder it's pretty deep. Like the sessions we played with Jackson, he went pretty deep into things, so it really kind of connects you to that world because it's an interesting world. They did a nice job of making like a fantasy equivalent and questions about maybe the fantasy realm actually exists in this sci-fi world. So yeah, interesting content for that Starfinder world. It wasn't just like, okay, everything has space in front of it. So space dwarves, space elves. It was a lot richer than that.
So, but it's not like Space Fighter, Space Wizard, Space Ranger.
Right, yeah. Which I was worried about. But they do have my favorite thing is at the back of the Starfinder core book, they have conversions of the iconic characters, like what a fantasy paladin would look like as a
space paladin.
Yeah. I think it's like a heavy
lawgiver.
armored fighter. Yeah.
Oh, heavy armored fighter.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Like so they do the power armor, like a Space Marine style. So those illustrations were great.
That's pretty cool.
It was really cool to see them converting those iconic characters. And this is kind of how, if you like this type of character in Pathfinder, this is how you could reproduce that in Starfinder.
Well, it's also the same thing, isn't it? Basically. Sorry to all the Pathfinder and Starfinder players.
Nice. So some other RPGs that we're going to be looking at is a Hellboy RPG.
Okay.
So Mantic is producing this. It's actually being designed by Mark Langworthy of Red Scar Publishing, who has credits on Mutant Chronicles, Judge Dredd, and Worlds of 2000 AD, as well as the Conan Adventures in the Age Undreamed Of.
Right.
So he's got current RPG cred. So they're going to do a Kickstarter for it, and it's going to be based on 5e. So
I have immediately lost interest, but okay.
Yeah, so it's odd. There's a couple of mechanics. So they have Doom and Ingenuity, which sounds like things that come from 2D20 systems.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So Doom for the Game Master and Ingenuity, kind of like Momentum in 2D20. So they're going to have those things as well. And because Mantic previously produced a kind of skirmish combat board game,
that's what I know them from. Yeah.
Of Hellboy, there are miniatures.
Oh.
And there are custom dice. So they also incorporated a way to use those D6s to generate the Doom and Ingenuity, which would regularly just be a D10.
Right. Well,
So,
okay. Knowing that, I cannot fault their choice from a business standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
We already have these things in place. Why not get people to use them instead of making new stuff or being completely separate? As like a player, I'm 5e, so I'm immediately not interested.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, miniatures and funky dice. Okay, fine. I'm wondering if you're going to play characters from the comic.
In the set that they're going to release or that they're kickstarting, there'll be a quick start game, of course, involved in the Kickstarter that you can try. 6 pre-generated characters.
I couldn't tell you who they are because the only experience I have with Hellboy is the movies.
Ah, right.
And only the first 2 movies. I haven't seen the latest one.
I think the movies included most of the major characters, though. Yeah, but you will be rolling characters. Fans of Minola's Hellboy have the chance to interact with the characters and fellow BPRD associates as part of the new Kickstarter campaign created in partnership with Dark Horse and Mantic.
So that sounds like you're not playing the main
you're playing their
characters.
types.
They're there.
Yeah, your agents. Yeah.
So they're essentially NPC, quest giver NPCs.
Right.
Which, we've talked about this before a lot. And it's kind of the same problem you run into with playing games and existing IPs. I don't know how I feel about that.
And also, I don't know how necessary a Hellboy RPG is, because basically if you did modern Call of Cthulhu, aren't you kind of playing Hellboy?
You could. Yeah. I was thinking of games like Monster of the Week, which specifically has a monstrous playbook, or other kind of later added some more magical characters. Fate of Cthulhu, well, that's kind of different. That's Terminator mashup with Cthulhu. Right. But you could do it. But there's any other or any number of supernatural investigation, monster hunting style games that you could play Hellboy in. However, again, from a business standpoint, I guess I understand saying, great, you want to play Hellboy. Here's the Hellboy RPG. Yeah. Instead of saying, great, find something and build it yourself, right? Like that, companies don't really want to do that.
Right. So. It makes sense. It's a logical step and probably much less production than producing miniatures and dice and board game tiles and all that good stuff. Maybe pairs nicely. Maybe they'll get a lot of crossover between the people that back the board game and said, maybe now I'll have accessories for the RPG. And if it's a reasonable level, like if they're not going to pack it with a bunch of unnecessary stuff, if the core playable level of the Kickstarter is reasonable, then people may try it just to be. Yeah, but
they also went extra safe and said, "Hey, let's make it for the world's most popular RPG."
Yes, so, they kind of broadened it out. So I'm curious how it's gonna do, how it's gonna work. I mean, I think Hellboy is still reasonably popular, but there's
after
so
that
many
last movie, maybe not as much.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was a real bummer. And also, in the world of tabletop RPGs, based on licensed RPGs, we have a Masters of the Universe, the RPG that no one's ever asked for.
Okay, see, this one, this is selfish. This one I am excited for. And because, I didn't ask for a Masters of the Universe RPG. Not all that interested in He-Man, but it's powered by Cortex Prime.
Yes,
which, full disclaimer, I have a spotlight in that's coming out sometime. So I actually have been paid for freelance work for working on stuff for Cortex Prime by Magic Vacuum Productions. So with that out of the way, I'm actually kind of excited to see this because, A, it's not powered by D&D
Right.
because it's by Mattel.
Yes,
so why would they use a Hasbro product?
Right.
It's a recognizable IP that pretty much everybody knows about. And what we just talked about with the Hellboy, okay, maybe this will introduce people to playing a game. I think this will possibly introduce people to playing a game that's not D20 based and not D&D based. So didn't ask for it. I'm excited to see what it looks like.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, I think the He-Man kind of IP is odd, because it was a failed, it was a failure to do something with Conan, and they lost the license.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, so they just converted. It's like, oh, he's blonde now. Let's make that little.
Well, thanks a lot, because that blonde hair and blue eyes are what kept me from watching it as a kid. Thanks a lot. All right.
Yeah, so it was an odd thing, but the early, there was a lot of early creative energy in it, like the comics that they included in the early figures and stuff were interesting. It was an odd world and an odd story, but by the time Filmation did that horrible animation series, it's like, who cares about these characters? It was really, really lifeless and very kind of sterile. So I wonder where they're going to pull from as far as the lore. And there's been, remakes recently.
I haven't looked into it that much, but I think there was an AP run by Cam Banks, the person who designed the Cortex stuff, much of the later Cortex stuff. I'm going to have to go look at it. I think I saw a note saying that you pretty much have all of the Eternia lore, hate that word, to pull from. Whether it's kind of like, and I think they possibly even incorporate like She-Ra, Princesses of Power in it as well, where you can play like a legacy character that's kind of like a version of an existing character, or like a completely brand new character. So like we've talked before about maybe you only get certain chunks of a timeline belonging to an IP. I think they got all of it, and there's rules in it to basically run the entire gamut, which again makes me more interested in it.
Right. So their announcement said, players can customize or create their own characters to embark on epic adventures set in the vast world of Eternia and its twin moons. So the entire experience will contain a core role-playing game, including a 250-page hardcover book, pull-out maps, a digital companion and tool set, and the community content creation and sharing platform. And the interesting detail was there will be an organized gameplay program that will give fans the opportunity to participate in a connected living story within Masters of the Universe, in person or online or on players' digital device. This will allow a living world and kind of living experience. So the achievements or changes that people have made to the world will all be kind of kept track of. So like you said, it's based on Cortex Prime. We'll see how much interest there is. Because they do I think there have been a couple of animated series that they've attempted to kind of bring it back and kind of fix it, make it a little more interesting from the Filmation version where it's just, kiddie noise and nonsense. And
as someone who went back and watched Thundercats in university because loved it as a kid, wow, that didn't age well. Right. I am guessing He-Man aged even more poorly. So no, I am not going to go back and look at it again.
Right.
But yeah.
Two IPs that, they've got some nostalgia. They're a little bit popular. Do they need their own licensed RPGs? I don't know. We'll see. I think
good question. From a business standpoint, yes.
Of course they
From
do.
a consumer standpoint, maybe not so much.
I'm curious too if this He-Man license, if they're going to take it, they don't say if they're taking it to Kickstarter or they're just going to release it, And,
I think it's probably just, and I have no idea, it sounds like it's just going to be released. Because I know it's under new management now, but I don't believe previous Cortex-powered games through like Margaret Weis, like the Firefly and Battlestar Galactica, I don't believe those were Kickstarted.
Okay.
Who knows? I could be way off base here, and I don't have any inside knowledge about the upcoming Masters of the Universe RPG. I would like to get my hands on it and run a game of it because I do like Cortex Prime.
Could be wacky because you can push it to be more gonzo and a little bit more extreme, more extreme than the kind of kiddie version that we've seen.
Oh, we're going that way. Oh, well, you know what? With this group, or rather with our group, okay, maybe we can't live stream it, especially if it's a character named Fisto. But anyway, I still do want to give it a try.
Yes. Speaking of RPGs,
because what other type of podcast is this?
Based on existing IPs, there is a new Humble Bundle available now that's actually based on a system that works very well with the IP that it's serving, kind of the world that it's in. So the Star Trek, the Modifius 2D20 Star Trek RPG. So if you have been interested at all in checking this out, I think this is definitely worth it because you basically get everything.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I forget what the $15
Right.
usually.
It's usually under $20 at,
Right.
at first. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that gives you everything, plus they give you a 50% discount on the physical core book.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
So if you wanted to order that as well. Yeah, so $260 worth of Star Trek PDFs. And it is basically everything that they've released, including the starter set. So you can actually play the pre-existing adventure with the pre-gen characters in the starter set, which is decent. We had
You
a
played
session
that,
of
didn't
that.
you?
Yeah, we had a session of that. Yeah, so I would recommend this because they've done a really good job of, they break it up into the eras. So you can play specifically, the default era is Next Generation.
Okay.
But you can play in any era that you want. And they have adventure supplements that give you details for everything, playing, every imaginable alien race and in every imaginable quadrant. Oh, and also included, if anybody is also playing the Star Trek Online MMO, they give you original Deep Space Nine uniforms and Elite Services starter packs for that MMO included in this, just to sweeten the deal if you're deep into Star Trek but haven't tried this RPG. I don't know how much crossover that is.
Who knows? Yeah.
The nice thing that they do in the adventure collections is they give you adventures to run that are basically can be run like weekly episodes of Star Trek.
Cool. Okay.
So that was really compelling to me that, you can basically break things up into episodes of a TV show. So every time you're together, you're playing, and maybe it's a two-parter, so they really do a good job of that, giving you interesting stories and also the flexibility to say, if you want to play this in a different era, you can shift this. Like this wouldn't exist, and you can kind of shift things.
Okay, that's cool.
The adventures that I've read so far in those adventure books are really great. They do a good job, and I could really see people coming back like week after week or session after session, really wanting to see like what's on the show next, what's our crew going to be encountering next.
Now, I really do like those episodic kind of games. The one problem you run into is if you don't end the session with kind of everyone back at the ship or everyone back at the base. Sometimes you can do a two-parter, but I'm not that great with timing, and it's going to be like, we got 5 minutes left. You all teleport back to the ship, so we can kind of go on to the next adventure next week. Yeah, and we're done. Roll credits. Yeah,
yeah, but I think this is definitely worth. I'll put a link to our review of the Star Trek 2D20 RPG, and you can really see how the mechanics and the world themselves really match, like the sensibility of, and basically you're playing Starfleet officers or Starfleet members. Graduates of Starfleet Academy. But recently they have, I'm not sure, I don't think included in this set, but a recent book for playing Klingon characters as well has come out. So so they did a really good job with it. So it's a really enjoyable game if you like, and I'm not a huge Star Trek fan, but I really felt that how the game was set up and how you create your characters and everything really matches the mechanics and gives you a satisfying experience of the high-mindedness of Star Trek. Like combat is not your first resort, is all there. But the one complaint that I have read about the system is character advancement. Okay. So basically, you don't? You create, you don't really, you do advance, but it's very different. It's not an experience-based system, and you're basically promoted through ranks as you would be in Starfleet. That isn't satisfying for some people. They really want the little goodie at the end of each session, and they want to keep track of all their points. So some people have expressed they like previous systems with Star Trek because maybe they like that old sensibility, or I guess that's maybe new as well, that I just want to keep leveling up and getting new skills and growing my character. But if you think about like how much the characters really evolve in a season of the TV show, there's not there's not incredible skill changes or competency gain.
I think it's kind of, as someone who's kind of interested or enjoys sort of pulp games, especially kind of like Conan and stuff like that, your characters don't really advance because they are largely the same from episode to episode, so that you can kind of like keep jumping back, and not back as in back in time, but like back to the show essentially, and what characters you're going to play. I guess from a TV standpoint, if the characters were constantly changing, it would be difficult for audiences to or more difficult for audiences to identify with them. It's kind of like, we know what we're going to get with this character, and that kind of means characters largely have to be static. Except maybe like a major plot arc of someone getting promoted, and then they stay that way for a lot. So that appeals to me, kind of the very minimal or non-progressing character. But I understand that, yes, some people do enjoy getting that little carrot or extra widget kind of, at kind of regular intervals to watch their character mechanically grow and change, where I am fine with kind of more fictional or narrative growth and change.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that a little bit when we were talking about OSR. Do you think that that's PC games and console games that are like fantasy RPGs? Do you think that's what's responsible for people wanting this? Like, I want to level up. I want to, feel an increase in power and strength and,
I don't know, because, I'm not a video gamer, but I think there's like some video games where it's only your gear that changes, right? Picking up the new weapon or whatever. But yeah, others have skill increase. I would say it's maybe more like Dungeons and Dragons. The increase in level, that kind of being the quote industry standard for RPGs.
Right.
That's what people kind of come to expect. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with liking that kind of thing, except for people complaining about not having it when there are other ways to do it. Yeah. And that came out weird, but
yeah, and the Star Trek system, I think, works well. I mean, it makes sense in kind of what they've created in that system. There is no Gen Con this year. It was online, or there was Gen Con online, which is just kind of random Twitch streams. But anyhow, the 2020 Ennie Awards were announced. And so we have the winners. We have the list of the winners. And as expected, Free League cleans up again, winning Best Publisher, Best Game, Gold for Alien, Product of the Year, Gold, Best Writing, Gold, Best Layout and Design, Gold, and Best Game, Silver for Mjorkborg.
The art book RPG.
Yes, right. And another interesting winner was the Petit Goulnol's lush solo RPG, 1,000-Year-Old Vampire.
Oh,
you know that? Yeah.
I've heard of that. Yeah, as someone who's interested in solo RPGs, this interested me, and I forget why I bounced off it the first time. Maybe it was more. I think it was more involved than I expected it to be or wanted to do at the time, but. Own it, and I'm going to have to go back and look at it.
Written by Tim Hutchins, and that took Product of the Year Silver and Best Production Values Gold and Best Rules Gold. A lot of good appearances. Yeah, so those were the big winners. Something that you may be interested in, Best Supplement Silver was Ironsworn Delve.
Yep, I saw that. Yep.
Yeah, 1,000-Year Vampire seemed to, it showed up a surprising amount. And it's from the photos that I've seen, it's a beautiful book. The book itself is just gorgeous. So the Indie Groundbreaker Awards were announced as well. So most innovative in the indie category was If I Were a Lich Man by Lucian Kahn.
I heard of that. It's pretty good.
Best art was Humblewood by A Deck of Many. Best rules was Mazes by Ninth Level Games. Best setting was Afterlife Wandering Souls by Angry Hamster Publishing. And Indie Game of the Year was Companion's Tale by Laura Simpson.
I am not familiar with any of these, which I suppose I have to turn in my Indie Gamer card now, don't I? What's that meme that's been going around? Opinions that'll get your whatever card revoked, which I've come to hate with a passion. So there you go. My Indie Gamer card has been revoked.
I'm tearing it up right now.
Yep. You'll have to add in some sound effects right there.
And the one thing that was a little disappointing, but definitely expected, was the podcast of the year, the best podcast, I guess, category, which, disappointing, of course, is Gold Best Podcast went to Asians Represent, which we've already talked about, for their 26-episode series, bagging on Oriental adventures.
I have not
page
watched
by
that.
page. You should not watch it. Nobody should watch that. So, okay, what I'm proposing now is Idle Red Hands is going to be a purely expat gaijin representation podcast, and we're going to complain how we are ignored by the Japanese industry, and everything we've produced is not even being translated into Japanese. You can't even hear this podcast in Japanese, as far as I know.
Isn't that what we are already?
We're advocates for expatry. Yeah, and that doesn't seem to get a lot of sympathy, does it? But this is just disappointing, playing the Asian
Do you think so, though?
Yes, I do. I mean, I think they would not have this problem in the rest. There's a whole half of the world where Asian representation is not really an issue.
Well, okay. I don't know if I have time to get into this now because I'm almost at the end of my lunch break. But these are these are basically Western Game Awards, right? The fact, because as far as I know, nothing for the Ennies gets translated into any other language.
Right. Yeah, not
so
international.
That severely limits who can enter and who this is for. I don't know if it's fair to compare that to other. I'm going to butcher. I can't collect my thoughts. I don't think it's fair to compare that to other segments of the world who may or may not have game awards where other groups may or may not be represented.
Right.
But I kind of feel like for what the Ennies is, and I've not watched the Asians Represent podcast, so I can't comment on anything about quality or content or anything like that. But TTRPGs have a problem when it comes to demographics. So whether this is kind of a step forward into better representation, or whether this was kind of I don't want to say a given, but whether the Ennies said, okay, we kind of have to do this to improve our image because the Ennies among certain groups doesn't have a great image.
Right.
So I don't know. That came out all kinds of mashed up, but, and it doesn't really have a point though, does it? I guess the main point is like I don't think you can say this is kind of throwing a group of people a bone just to kind of make them be quiet, or can you? Maybe I don't know. Maybe it is.
I don't know. Well, I just don't like that. Yeah, I think like we were just talking about. We were talking about Orion Black being the diversity hire. Yep. I mean, I think this is a diversity choice as
Possibly,
a winner.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like, well, let's give. And the problem that I have with like what they're doing as a podcast is, hey, why don't you make good things? Why don't you just not spend time criticizing old things that most people don't even remember? Most people don't have any interest. I mean, it's not like we can't move forward. It's not, we're always looking back because...
In this specific case, and I understand what you're saying, in this specific case, the fact that Oriental Adventures is still being sold on the DMs Guild, and in 2020, we still have new publishers, independent publishers, publishing what is basically still Oriental Adventures with serial numbers filed off. I kind of see their point where you have to bring this up and talk about it because publishers seem to be making the same mistakes.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's interesting. And I think that is a little bit of a kind of soft empire problem. I mean, Japan having such a dominant popularity starting in the 80s. Yeah. That I don't think Asians are represented well because either
it's Japan or nothing.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Everybody is either everything is samurai and geisha, or it's all China. I don't know. Yeah, it's like Asia is China or Asia is
ninjas
Japanese
and samurai and geisha. Yeah, especially when it comes to cyberpunk too. Like that's all you got.
Yeah, right.
There ain't no brown Asian people, like in terms of like Southeast Asian people anywhere in cyberpunk or that kind of like Oriental adventure stuff. So
just make games that defy that show people that that's not all there is, instead of saying, oh, can you believe this? Can you believe this? Which basically is
I think it's possible to do both. And different people's skill sets lie in different places.
But just don't make me listen to it.
They didn't strap you to a chair, stick earbuds in your ears and force you to listen to it. You chose to. You could have tapped out after the first 10 minutes.
But now it's an award-winning podcast.
You still don't have to watch it.
Yeah, but yeah, it's interesting, and I completely skipped. And the other, who was the silver winner? And the silver was Red Moon Role Playing, which I think I've listened to a little bit. Yeah, so I think they do AP.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of APs. Yeah, I don't know. And if these guys do APs or do like actual reviews of interesting discussion of things other than what race they are, I think that would be very interesting. But the title leads me to believe.
I was going to say it's called Asians Represent, so you can tell where their focus is. You are allowed to opt out. Yeah,
that's true. It's not like they're trying to fool me with the title.
Nope, they're not.
It's a bait and switch. Yeah. So anyhow,
I kind of have feelings on the Ennies anyway. So
right. And they were only online. So how much exposure could that possibly be?
My last game of Masters of Umdar, speaking of Masters of the Universe, got canceled because not enough people signed up for it. I think because of we're kind of not really sure what's going to happen in terms of like the pandemic and state of emergency here in Japan. And it's not like the government's going to do anything about it. I think the end of the month, I'll be a player this time in the recent TTRPG and dating sim, Visigoths versus Molgoths.
Oh, nice. Oh, I've seen that title. Nice.
I've been wanting to play that for a while. So hopefully it'll happen.
Excellent. So where can people find you?
On Twitter, as always, because Google Plus died. It's Hivemind, HYVEMYND, where I am currently talking about 90s music. I guess. Yep. So how about you?
So I do a single panel gag cartoon that I live stream. So that's available on Twitch and YouTube. And I do that on a Monday evening, North American time, kind of Tuesday afternoon, Japan time, Asia time. You can follow that cartoon at abusecartoons.com or at abusecartoons on Twitter. Abusecartoons.com is the website. And the archive of previous cartoons is gocomics.com/domesticabuse. And if you'd like to get in touch with Idle Red Hands, visit the website, idleredhands.com. You can follow us on Twitter at Idle Red Hands. We have both a Twitch channel and a YouTube channel with video reviews and all kinds of good stuff. Everything under Idle Red Hands. And if you'd like to get involved and support the podcast, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/idleredhands. And because we mentioned the Star Trek 2D20 role-playing system, I thought maybe it would be appropriate to look at some quotes from Gene Roddenberry, kind of put ourselves back in the mind of, when that franchise was created and the thinking that he had behind it in the context of now, if that still works and if that is, still the kind of aspirational, enlightened thinking that we want it to be. So here is a few things that he said about Star Trek. Star Trek was an attempt to say that humanity will reach maturity and wisdom on the day that it begins not just to tolerate, but to take a special delight in differences in ideas and differences in life forms. If we cannot learn to actually enjoy these small differences, to take a positive delight in those small differences between our own kind here on this planet, then we do not deserve to go out into space and meet the diversity that is almost certainly out there. If humanity is to survive, we will learn that differences in ideas and attitudes are a delight, part of life's exciting variety, not something to fear. So I think those words are still relevant, and I think, I wish a lot of that thinking still existed. Some people now would call that kind of thinking naive, or it's not as politically motivated as it might be nowadays. But I think it's still something to think about, and I think that's why the Star Trek setting and playing a game in that world is still refreshing, because it takes us back to that time where lines of division that have disappeared. I think that's important to think about, and I think that's a fun world to play in. So that's it for this week. We'll be back next week.
Later, mortals.
Bye.
On some Sunday grind, wasted, sprawl. I had one more chance to make it out to